I'm delighted to be here to share some of my insights of working as a banker and, more importantly, as an investor across multiple companies and the learnings which I gathered over a period of last 20 plus years. The topic is affordable capital, but let me first dwell upon the topic of this conference, which is revolving around entrepreneurship. Let's first ask this question: are we providing right ecosystem for entrepreneurs to flourish? And then I'll touch upon the issue, the core issue of providing capital. Let me take an audience poll. May I request all those who are first generation entrepreneurs to raise their hands? So we have a significant number of first generation entrepreneurs. Now let me again do a poll here. Can you please raise hands if you are second generation entrepreneur and still have gone into a new business completely outside your family business? Yeah, so we have a significant number of people raising hands here. Now, I'll give you here an anecdote. When we talk about entrepreneurship, it is the DNA which matters. Do we carry the DNA of businessmen? Unfortunately, in today's educational system, we are making that DNA suffer by making them more and more educated for corporate and career professionals. That's mainly because the corporate professionals today are getting into the limelight, and somehow the businessmen are not getting due attention at an early stage of career. And here I will share an example which I have personally witnessed. One of the startup company, the founder, after that, and the company has folded by now, so I can share the example. The founder actually pulled out of the company. He was a co-founder and pulled out of the company. And the company was obviously doing a decent business. And I asked him, how come you are moving away? You are a fantastic IIT graduate. What is the reason for you to come out of this? He said, Satya, let me confess you very privately. My value in the marriage market has gone substantially down. And my family is insisting that I go back to a corporate career, which many of my friends are doing, because my mother and my father wants to see me settle in this business, in my married life. Although he was not 100% convinced, but for whatever reason, he took the call and moved back. And these are things, I mean, I can go on sharing some of these examples, but I think it's important to provide right DNA. And one of the right DNA we need to provide is that we need to provide them margin for failures. Still, I think in Bharat, we do not have sufficient amount of margin for failures being given to budding entrepreneurs. If you go to Bay Area, and I've spent some time looking at this, for any good business idea to succeed, one of the checkbox they tick, how many times has this guy tested failure as part of his journey to success? And if there is an idea coming from somebody who has already failed in first venture or possibly second venture, the chances of he or she getting the funding would be far higher than possibly in our own Bharat or many other parts of the community that we are talking about. Why is it so? Because we do not provide margin for failures. And it's very important. Fortunately, at the same time, we have got DNA of business in our genes. And that's something that we can all be proud of. Let's make the best use of it. And this is what I say. So, taking the theme of World Hindu Economic Conference, we need to play the role of Brahma. Are we? I don't think we are sufficiently doing it. And to play the role of Brahma, what we need is this. In order to make you a little more legible, I have converted my presentation from text to pictures so that you can relate to it a little more easily. So what is the role of Brahma I'm talking about? We need to provide right kind of capital for business to succeed. And when I talk about capital, actually it's a combination of 3 types of capital, and I will not touch upon all the 3. I will request my fellow panel speakers to touch upon the other part of the capital, but maybe let me at least set the context for all the 3 capital. When I'm talking the first one, it's the intellectual capital. Intellectual capital, what we mean by intellectual capital is that idea, the innovation, and making the idea and innovation take to the market, and that the process for taking it all together is what the intellectual capital is all about. And I'm told that my colleague Ram here on the dais is going to touch upon that, so I'm restricting myself commenting on the intellectual capital part. The second capital, which is very important, and that's what I'm supposed to speak, is the financial capital. And I'll get into the details of a little bit of this. But let me first cover the third part, and that is what I call the spiritual capital, what Swamiji is providing for this conference today to all of us. I think we need a spiritual capital for our business as well. And here, when I'm talking about spirituality, we need the guru to make business happen. And the guru is the mentor. Guru is the person with whom you can go and share your moments of success, moments of failures, those moments of excitement and moments of frustration. Because very often, this journey for entrepreneurship is not that simple. While the path is led down, you are still going to hit n number of milestones and n number of roadblocks. And here you need some kind of guru. And I'm taking this concept from the, like for us in life to succeed, we need to have a guru who can take us through those moments. Something similar, you need the mentorship capital, and that is what, in my language, I'm calling the spiritual capital. Now, let me not touch upon too much on this, and let me straight away come to the financial capital part, the Lakshmi part of it. So when I'm talking about, I will leave Saraswati to my friend Ram Sahasranam to talk about, and let me touch upon the goddess Mahalakshmi. Okay, so when we talk about risk capital, I mean, you can talk about capital in different ways, and I'll touch upon few of these in my limited time of next 4 minutes available. The risk capital is required at various stages in business. Risk capital very often is associated with only the startup stage. When you want to start a new business, you need a risk capital. And here, very often, we talk about startup funding, angel funding, seed funding, venture capital funding. There's also risk capital needed when the businesses are going through rough patch. And that is what I call distress capital. You need to have some pockets of money available in our ecosystem to provide for the distress capital. Now, the new age of this risk capital funding for startup, as Suvaji just commented about this crowdfunding, in whichever way you see it in nowadays, actually this concept is very ancient. I remember as a child, maybe at the age of around 15, I went for inauguration of one of the nearby a small business in our village and town. And there I was given the task of collecting the envelopes. So everyone who was coming for inauguration of that business was carrying an envelope, and I was given the task to collect the envelope. And when the muhurat was done, I was asked to write it down, and actually I asked somebody, I said, what to do? And I was a student of commerce. So the answer was, isko punji khate jama kar lo. For those of you who don't understand Hindi, kindly credit it to the capital account. Oh. Which means that whenever anybody in our ancient civilization started a new business, the community came together to provide the initial seed capital, in whatever form they thought it appropriate. And it was very much prevalent. And I'll touch upon, not only that was prevalent for initial capital, but it was also available for distress capital. And let me give you an example. before I touch the distress capital part, let me first finish, I think, the startup part. I think that momentum is important. So, startup capital is key for entrepreneurship DNA to be built in the society. Today, when we talk about US and its mighty success around business, and why most of the budding entrepreneurs today go to US to start a business, the reason is very simple, because the availability of startup capital there is fairly easy. Some of you would have visited San Francisco Bay Area and Sand Hill Road. You would figure out that every 100 meters, there's a startup capital available in plenty, provided you have the right idea and you can convince those people that your idea is likely to work. And that is what we need to create today. And I'll touch upon how we can create it in this forum. But let me now talk about the second part of the capital, and which is a very concept that you can relate to. Business is like Samudra Manthan. And this journey for success will not come, that Amrit will not come so easily. You will have to pass through those drops of poison. Vish peena hi padega. And for that, every business has gone through those moments of challenge where the business would have simply folded. Because not that you can't really be successful all the time or all the moments. You will have some stage where business requires the distress capital. Are we coming forward to it? Very often, the moment a business passes through those moments of frustration, where we look down upon the entrepreneur as if he has committed a blunder of starting a business. Let's look at it again from our ancient culture. I was reading some spiritual text around Maharaja Agrasen, who is about 5,000 years ago, descendant of Lord Ram, 5,000 years ago. And when I was reading a little bit about Agroha and the urban center which was created in those point in time, I came across a very unique practice in those days, that whenever there was a family in distress, and when I'm talking about family, I'm talking about the business distress, I'm not talking about, community used to come together and they used to provide 1 rupee and 1 brick. Now, I don't know what that 1 rupee means, because I believe those days we used to have golden 1 rupee in gold. The entire community in the urban, whatever village, the Agroha used to come together and give him that 1 rupee and 1 brick, so that the business and the life for him, so shelter and the business can be protected. And that was what the mantra of providing distress capital in those days. Somehow we have lost some of these traditions, and we have become quite individualistic in terms of how I can succeed, or we as a family can succeed, rather than making communities succeed. So I think when we talk about capital, we should not only talk about risk capital, but also within the risk capital, the availability of startup capital, as well as the distress capital. And here, let me touch upon how can this happen within this forum. I'm told that another name of Lakshmi is Chanchala. And to make the Lakshmi stable or sthir from Chanchala, you need to purify the wealth. And our Shastras have mentioned very often that you need to at least contribute some part of your wealth for the social cause, philanthropic cause, charitable cause. And I'm being made aware through some of my spiritual discourses by the gurus and learned Swamijis, that at least 10% of capital should go towards social cause. Whether you agree with 10%, 1%, 20%, I leave the decision to you. But very often, people generally say that I have not created enough wealth. I am still in the wealth accumulation mode. How should I start giving it so early? So I'm not the spiritual discourse maker here and give you the mantra of giving this 10%. I can't convince you unless you are convinced personally yourself. But at least I can convince you to at least take 10% of whatever investable wealth you have for providing capital in whichever manner you feel for either a budding providing support to a budding entrepreneur or to providing an entrepreneur in need at whatever stage of the business he or she is. And that would not only be taking wealth, that would not take the wealth away from you. Actually, it will bring more wealth to you. This is the investment which is going to lead phenomenal returns in whichever way you think about it, in what you do as a business community. So we should take a pledge. Now, I'm not saying that we should set up a fund. That I leave it to the august panel here to decide whether we should set up a distress fund, we should set up a startup fund, or we should provide an SME fund. I mean, all these are formats, but assuming these formats are not available to you, at least you can do it in your day-to-day life by providing capital. And this capital will come back to you in the form of significant return. Not only the monetary returns, but also returns in terms of acknowledgement from the society at large. Hey guys, you have created a phenomenal impact because of this. And I can talk about some of these companies that I have been part of the journey. Not all these companies are really doing well, but I can be proud today to say that out of these 20 companies that I'm part of it, today these 20 companies have created employment for more than 5,000 people. And not only that, it has changed life for many hundreds of thousands of people in various. I can give you an example of a company which we seeded some time back, and that was into microfinance when the sector was doing extremely bad. And this company was seeded in Banaras in Bharat, and today that company has got 100%. This is the microfinance sector, and guys, mind you, microfinance, when the sector is right now passing through some tough phase, this company today has changed life of more than 100,000 women entrepreneurs in rural India, with providing jobs to more than 2,000 people directly. And more importantly, we have taken out more than 2 lakh people out of poverty because of this initiative. And today, IFC Washington is our equity partner. I have absolutely no stake to talk about, but that is what the power of micro-entrepreneurship we can create. I urge upon this August forum to come forward and provide whatever percentage of your capital you can to make the capital available for entrepreneurial ecosystem to be nurtured, and more importantly, for the people who are passing through the moments of distress so that they can pass through that Samudra Manthan before they get Amrit. Thank you so much.